Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you love a good mystery with heart, twists, and a small-town vibe, you're in for a treat today. We're diving into Secrets Beneath the Fog, a story about loss, courage, and uncovering truths buried deep in the misty woods of Oregon. This one's got it all: emotion, suspense, and a chase for answers that'll keep you hooked. So grab a snack, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any part of this journey. Let's get started. The fog rolled in thick over Misty Hollow, Oregon, like a blanket smothering the town every morning. It clung to the pines, swirled around the old brick houses, and made the street lights glow like hazy moons. Tom Caldwell stood on his back porch, coffee, mug in hand, staring out at the forest that stretched beyond his yard. Fogwood, the locals called it, a sprawling wilderness of towering trees and secrets nobody dared to whisper. 20 years ago, that forest had taken his son, Ethan, and never given him back. Tom was 48 now, his hair more gray than brown, his shoulders stooped from years of carrying grief. His hands, rough from years as a forestry worker, gripped the mug tight like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. The town hadn't changed much since 1998, when Ethan vanished. Same diner serving greasy burgers, same hardware store with creaky floors, same whispers about Fogwood being cursed. But Tom had changed. He was a shell of the man who used to laugh with his boy, teaching him how to skip rocks across the creek or spot deer tracks in the mud. Ethan was 14 when he disappeared, a lanky kid with a crooked grin, always carrying a pocket knife and a beat-up notebook where he sketched birds and trees. He'd been camping with friends in Fogwood, a rite of passage for Misty Hollow kids. Tom and his wife, Sarah, had waved him off that July morning, never imagining it'd be the last time they'd see him. The search parties found nothing but Ethan's torn backpack by Willow Creek, its straps tangled in the roots of a fallen tree. No footprints, no clues, no Ethan. The police called it a runaway case, then a possible accident. Tom never bought it. His boy wouldn't run, and he was too smart to get lost. Sarah never recovered. She stopped teaching, stopped smiling, stopped living. 5 years ago she passed away in her sleep, her heart too heavy to keep beating. Tom buried her with a photo of Ethan tucked in her hands, hoping they'd find each other somewhere beyond the fog. Now, alone in the house they'd once filled with laughter, Tom lived for routine, work, coffee, staring at the forest, waiting for answers that never came. That morning, October 2018, the phone rang, shattering the quiet. Tom set his mug down and shuffled inside, the screen door creaking behind him. He picked up the receiver, expecting a telemarketer or a neighbor needing a favor. "Tom, it's Bill," came the voice, gruff and familiar. Bill Hensley, a retired deputy who'd led the search for Ethan back in '98. "You sitting down?" Tom's stomach twisted. Bill hadn't called in years. What's going on? Some college kids were digging around in Fogwood for a school project, archaeology or some nonsense. They found a cave, Tom. A hidden one, under a rock slide. Inside, there was a metal box. Had some stuff in it, stuff with Ethan's name. Tom's knees buckled. He grabbed the counter to steady himself. "What kind of stuff?" "A watch. Old pocket watch like the one your dad gave him. And papers. Letters, maybe. They're with the sheriff now, but I thought you should know first." Tom's mind raced. Ethan's watch, the one with his initials carved on the back, a family heirloom he'd carried everywhere. "Where's this cave?" "North end of Fogwood, past the creek. Sheriff's got it cordoned off." "Tom, don't go rushing out there. Let them handle it." "Yeah," Tom said, but his voice was hollow. He hung up without another word, his heart pounding like it hadn't in years. The fog outside seemed to pulse, calling him to the forest that had stolen his son. He grabbed his coat, a flashlight, and the keys to his old pickup. The drive to Fogwood took 15 minutes, the road winding through misty hills. He parked near the trailhead, where yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze. A deputy stood guard, a kid barely out of high school, his face pale in the cold. "Mr. Caldwell, you can't be here," the deputy said, stepping forward. "Sheriff's orders?" "I'm not here to cause trouble," Tom said, his voice low but firm. "Just tell me what they found." The deputy hesitated, then sighed. "Box had a watch, some letters, and a newspaper clipping. Sheriff's sending it to the lab. That's all I know." Tom nodded, but his eyes were on the forest. The cave was out there, holding answers he'd waited 2 decades for. He turned back to his truck, but he wasn't going home. He needed someone who could dig deeper, someone who wouldn't let the truth stay buried. Rachel Harper was that person. She was 32, sharp as a tack, and the only journalist in Misty Hollow who'd ever dared write about Fogwood's dark side. She'd grown up 3 houses down from the Caldwells, a skinny kid with pigtails who used to follow Ethan around like a shadow. Tom hadn't seen her in years, not since she moved to Portland for college, but she was back in town, freelancing. For some big city paper, he found her at the Misty Hollow Diner, hunched over a laptop, a half-eaten burger on her plate. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her green eyes flicked up as Tom approached. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, surprised. "What's up?" "Need your help, Rachel." He slid into the booth across from her, keeping his voice low. "They found something in Fogwood, a box with Ethan's watch and some letters. I need to know what it means." Rachel's eyes widened. She'd written about Ethan's case in high school, a school paper project that got her in trouble for asking too many questions. "You sure it's his watch?" "Bill Hensley says it is. Sheriff's got it now, but I don't trust them to dig deep. You know how this town is. People don't like stirring up the past." She leaned back, chewing her lip. "Fogwood's always been trouble. Kids go missing, and nobody talks. You remember the rumors back then about drugs, shady folks using the forest as a hideout?" Tom nodded. He'd heard the stories, whispers of strangers in the woods, trucks rumbling down back roads at midnight. The police had dismissed it as gossip, but Tom had always wondered. "I'll look into it," Rachel said, closing her laptop. "But if this is big, it could get messy. You okay with that?" "I've got nothing left to lose," Tom said, his voice raw. "Just find out what happened to my boy." Rachel spent the rest of the day digging. She started at the library, flipping through old newspapers from '98. A small article caught her eye. A drug bust gone wrong, 2 counties over, tied to a smuggling ring operating out of rural Oregon. No mention of Misty Hollow, but the timing felt too close to be a coincidence. She made a note to check police records next. By evening, she was at the sheriff's office, charming her way past the front desk to talk to Deputy Alvarez, a friend from high school. "Heard about the box in Fogwood," she said casually. "Any leads?" Alvarez glanced around, then leaned in. "Not much. Letters are weird, though. Sound like someone confessing to something, but they're vague. Signed, The Penitent. Sheriff thinks it's a prank, but I don't know. That watch is real." Rachel's pulse quickened. "Can I see the letters?" "No chance. Evidence. But," he lowered his voice, "one mentioned a kid who saw too much. Didn't say Ethan's name, but it's close." She thanked him and left, her mind spinning. A kid who saw too much. Ethan, always curious, always poking around where we shouldn't. Had he stumbled onto something in that forest, something worth killing for? Back at home, Tom sat in Ethan's old room, untouched since '98. The walls were still plastered with band posters, the desk cluttered with colored pencils and half-finished sketches. He picked up a notebook, its pages yellowed with age. Ethan's. Handwriting filled the margins, notes about birds, trees, and one entry that stopped Tom cold. "Saw a truck in the woods last night. No plates. Guys in black. Think they saw me." Tom's hands shook. Ethan had known something was wrong. Why hadn't he told anyone? Or had he tried and nobody listened? The phone rang, startling him. It was Rachel. "Tom, I found something. Meet me at the diner now." He grabbed his keys and headed out. The fog thicker than ever, swallowing the road ahead. Whatever Ethan had seen in Fogwood, It was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. And Tom wasn't stopping until he knew the truth. The misty, hollow diner glowed like a beacon through the fog, its neon sign buzzing faintly. Tom pushed through the door, the bell jingling above him. The smell of fried onions and coffee hit him, grounding him for a moment as he scanned the room. Rachel sat in the same booth, her laptop open, a notebook scribbled with notes beside her. Her face was tense, like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. Tom slid into the booth, his coat still damp from the mist. "What'd you find?" he asked, his voice low, afraid to hope. Rachel pushed a photocopy of an old newspaper article across the table. This was in the library archives, buried in a box of microfiche. July 1998, a month before Ethan went missing. A drug bust in Lincoln County tied to a smuggling ring moving product through rural Oregon. Cops seized a ton of cash and product, but the ringleaders got away. Guess where the feds thought they were hiding out? Tom's eyes locked on the article. Fogwood? Bingo. Rachel tapped the paper. No hard proof, but locals reported strange trucks in the forest that summer. Same kind Ethan wrote about in his notebook. I think he saw something he wasn't supposed to. Tom's throat tightened. That notebook entry, guys in black, think they saw me, had been burning in his mind. Why didn't he tell me? I was his dad. He knew he could come to me. Rachel softened. He was a kid, Tom. Maybe he didn't know how big it was. Or maybe he tried and nobody listened. Kids don't always think straight when they're scared. Tom rubbed his face. The weight of 20 years pressing down. So what now? The sheriff's got the box. They're not going to let us near it. Rachel leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I've got a lead. The letters in that box, Deputy Alvarez said they're signed The Penitent. Sounds like someone with a guilty conscience. I did some digging on who was in Misty. Hollow back then, anyone tied to the forest or the drug rumors, one name keeps popping up. Victor Malone. Tom frowned. The horse ranch guy? Rich fella out on Old Mill Road? That's him. Back in '98, he was just a dock worker at the lumber mill, but he had a side hustle. Ran a repair shop out of his garage. Locals said he fixed trucks for some shady types, no questions asked. Now he's got a mansion and a stable full of prize. Horses. Doesn't add up. Tom's jaw clenched. He'd seen Victor around town over the years, always in a tailored suit, shaking hands like he owned the place. You think he was part of this smuggling ring? I think he knows something. Rachel said, and I'm going to find out what. I've got an interview with him tomorrow. Said it's for a piece on local businesses. He's vain enough to bite. Tom shook his head. Victor's not going to spill his guts to a reporter. Guys like that don't talk unless you've got something. On 'em, Rachel smirked. That's why I'm not going in blind. I found an old police report from '98, a complaint about late-night trucks near Victor's shop. Cops never followed up, but it's leverage. If he's hiding something, I'll push till he cracks. Tom studied her, the fire in her eyes reminding him of Ethan's stubborn streak. Be careful, Rachel. If Victor's tied to this, he's not going to like you sniffing around. She nodded, but her expression didn't waver. I'll watch my back. You should, too. Whoever wrote those letters might still be in town, and they won't be happy we're digging. Tom drove home through the fog, Rachel's words echoing in his head. The idea that Ethan had stumbled onto a drug ring made his chest ache. His boy, sketching birds one minute, running for his life the next. He parked in his driveway the house, dark and silent. Inside, he went straight to Ethan's room, pulling the notebook from the desk. He flipped through it again, searching for anything he'd missed. Most pages were doodles, owls, pines, a sketch of Willow Creek. But near the back, tucked between two pages, was a folded piece of paper he hadn't noticed before. He unfolded it carefully. It was a map, hand-drawn in Ethan's messy scrawl. A trail in Fogwood, marked with an X near what looked like a cave. Below it, in tiny letters, "Don't tell anyone." Tom's heart raced. Ethan had known about the cave, the same one those college kids found. Had he been there that night? Was that where it all went wrong? Sleep didn't come that night. Tom sat. At the kitchen table, the map spread out, his coffee cold. He wanted to storm into Fogwood, find that cave, and tear it apart. But he knew better. The sheriff would have it locked down, and he wasn't as young as he used to be. He needed Rachel's brains, her knack for getting answers. Still, that map felt like Ethan reaching out, begging him not to give up. The next morning, Rachel drove out to Victor Malone's ranch, her stomach in knots. The place was a sprawl of green pastures and white fences, a far cry from the gritty Milltown. Victor greeted her at the gate, all smiles, his silver hair slicked back, his handshake too firm. He led her to a sleek office in the main house, walls lined with photos of him with racehorses and local bigwigs. "Thanks for the interview, Mr. Malone," Rachel said, setting up her recorder. "Your ranch is impressive. Quite a jump from fixing trucks back in the day." Victor's smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Hard work pays off, Miss Harper." "I've been lucky," she nodded, keeping her tone light. "Must have been tough in '98, though. I read about some trouble back then, trucks coming and going from your shop at odd hours. Neighbors weren't happy. The air shifted." Victor leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the desk. "Old gossip. People in small towns love to talk." "I fixed cars, that's all," Rachel pressed on, her heart pounding. "Funny. Thing, though, those trucks match reports from Fogwood, same time a kid went missing. Ethan Caldwell. You remember him?" Victor's face went still, like a mask, slipping into place. "Tragic case. I heard about it, like everyone else. Never met the boy." She held his gaze, refusing to blink. "Some folks think Ethan saw something in the woods, something worth hiding. You ever hear anything like that, working at the mill?" Victor stood, his smile gone. "I think we're done here. I've got a busy day." Rachel didn't move. "One last question. Ever hear of someone called the Penitent? Wrote some letters, left them in a cave in Fogwood. Mentioned a kid who saw too much." For a split second, fear flickered in Victor's eyes. Then he laughed, cold and sharp. "You're chasing ghost stories, Ms. Harper. Good luck with your article." He escorted her out, his hand on her elbow, firm enough to make her skin crawl. As she drove away, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like the kid." Her hands shook, but she saved the message. Whoever sent it was watching, and they were scared. Back in town, Tom was at the hardware store buying a new flashlight and a rope, just in case he needed to check out that cave himself. The clerk, an old-timer named Gus, eyed him curiously. "Heard about that box they found in Fogwood," Gus said, ringing up the items. "Folks say it's got the devil's fingerprints on it." Tom forced a smile. "Just a box, Gus. Nothing more." Gus leaned in, his voice low. "You be careful, Tom. Back in '98, I saw Victor Malone's truck out by Willow Creek, middle of the night. Had a tarp over the back, like he was hiding. Something. Never told nobody till now." Tom's blood ran cold. "Why didn't you say anything back then?" Gus shrugged, looking guilty. "Didn't think it mattered. Victor was nobody back then. Guess I was wrong." Tom left the store, his mind racing. Victor's truck, Ethan's map, the letters. It was all coming together, but the pieces were still blurry. He called Rachel, catching her just as she pulled into the diner parking lot. "Victor's hiding something," she said, her voice tense. "He nearly lost it when I mentioned Ethan, and I got a creepy text telling me to back off." "Gus at the hardware store saw Victor's truck in Fogwood the night Ethan went missing," Tom said. "We need to get into that cave, Rachel. Ethan drew a map to it. I think he was there." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Okay, but we can't just waltz in. Sheriff's got deputies patrolling. We'll need a plan, and someone who knows the forest." "Who?" Tom asked. "Old man Carver," Rachel said. "The hermit who lives out by the creek. He's been in Fogwood longer than anyone, if anyone, can get us to that cave without being seen. It's him." Tom gripped the phone, hope and fear twisting in his chest. The cave was calling, and with it the truth about his son. But the fog was closing in, and someone out there was desperate to keep their secrets buried. The fog hung low over Willow Creek, curling around the gnarled trees like ghostly fingers. Tom's pickup rattled down the dirt road, the headlights barely cutting through the mist. Rachel sat beside him, her phone screen glowing as she typed. A quick note about their plan. They were headed to find Old Man Carver, the hermit who lived in a ramshackle cabin on the edge of Fogwood. If anyone could guide them to the hidden cave without the sheriff's deputies spotting them, it was him. Tom's hands gripped the steering wheel, Ethan's hand-drawn map tucked in his jacket pocket. The X marking the cave felt like a beacon, pulling him closer to answers. But Rachel's warning about the threatening text, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like the kid," gnawed at him. Someone was watching, and they weren't playing games. "You sure about Carver?" Tom asked, glancing at Rachel. "Folks say he's half crazy, living out there alone." Rachel nodded, her eyes fixed on the road. "He's eccentric, but he knows Fogwood better than anyone. My dad used to say Carver could find a needle in a haystack blindfolded. If that cave's hidden, he'll know how to get there." The road narrowed, and the truck bounced over roots and rocks. Ahead, a faint light flickered through the trees. Carver's cabin. Tom parked, and they stepped out into the damp air, the creek's soft gurgle mixing with the rustle of leaves. The cabin was a patchwork of weathered wood and tin, with a sagging porch cluttered with fishing gear and old lanterns. A single window glowed, casting shadows that danced in the fog. Rachel knocked on the door, her breath visible in the cold. "Mr. Carver, it's Rachel Harper. We need to talk." Silence, then a shuffle inside, followed by the creak of floorboards. The door cracked open, revealing a man who looked carved from the forest itself. Carver was in his 70s, his face lined like tree bark, his gray beard tangled. His eyes, sharp and wary, darted between Rachel and Tom. "What do you want?" he growled, his voice rough as gravel. "Ain't nobody comes out here unless they're lost or trouble." "We're not lost," Tom said, stepping forward. "We need your help, Carver. It's about my son, Ethan Caldwell. He went missing in Fogwood 20 years ago. They found a box in a cave. His watch was in it. I've got a map he drew, points to that cave. We need to get there without the sheriff knowing." Carver's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening on the doorframe. "Caldwell, huh? I remember that boy. Skinny kid, always drawing. Sorry for your loss, but I ain't a tour guide. Forest's no place to be poking around him, especially." "Not now?" "Why not now?" Rachel asked, her tone firm but respectful. "You've heard about the box, haven't you? Letters signed The Penitent, talking about a kid who saw too much. We think Ethan stumbled onto something. Maybe a drug ring. Victor Malone's name keeps coming up." Carver's face darkened at the mention of Victor. He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. "You're stirring up hornets, girl. Victor Malone ain't just some rich rancher. Back in the day, he ran with folks you didn't cross. I saw things in Fogwood, trucks, lights, men who weren't from around here. Kept my mouth shut, 'cause I wanted to keep breathing." Tom's heart pounded. "You saw Victor in Fogwood. Back then, when Ethan went missing?" Carver hesitated, then nodded. "Once or twice. Him and a couple others hauling crates down by the creek at night. I didn't ask questions, nobody did. But I heard whispers, kids getting caught in the what? Wrong place, disappearing? Your boy wasn't the first?" Rachel pulled out her notebook, scribbling fast. "Why didn't you tell the police?" Carver snorted. "Police? Half of them looked the other way. Victor had money, even back then. Bought silence like it was candy. You think I'm crazy living out here? I'm alive 'cause I stayed out of it." Tom's voice shook with anger. "My son's dead because nobody spoke up. I'm not asking you to fight Carver. Just get us to that cave. Ethan left a map. He wanted someone to find it." Carver studied Tom, then sighed, his shoulders sagging. "Show me the map." Tom handed over the folded paper, and Carver spread it on the porch railing, squinting in the dim light. His finger traced the trail, pausing at the X. "This ain't far from where they found that box. Old smuggler's hideout buried under a rock slide years ago. Tough to reach without knowing the paths. Deputies are crawling all over it, though." "Can you get us past them?" Rachel asked. Carver rubbed his beard, muttering to himself. "Maybe, but you're playing with fire. Whoever wrote those letters, they're still out there, and they don't want you finding what's in that cave. "We'll take the risk," Tom said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. Carver nodded slowly. "Meet me here at midnight. Bring flashlights, rope, and warm clothes. Fogwood's cold as death this time of year. And don't tell nobody where you're going. Not a soul." They agreed and headed back to the truck, the weight of Carver's words settling over them. As Tom drove, Rachel stared out the window, her mind racing. "He's scared, Tom. Carver's seen things he's kept buried for years. We're getting close, but it's dangerous." Tom gripped the wheel tighter. "I don't care how dangerous it is. Ethan's out there, in that cave, waiting for me to bring him home." Back at home, Tom packed a backpack, flashlight, rope, a pocket knife, and Ethan's map. He paused at a photo on the mantel. Ethan at 13, grinning by Willow Creek, a fish dangling from his line. Tom touched the frame, his throat tight. "I'm coming, kid. Hold on." Rachel, meanwhile, wasn't wasting time. She drove to the library, pulling every record she could find on Victor Malone. Most were fluff, articles about his ranch, his charity donations, but one old photo from '98, buried in a local paper, stopped her cold. Victor Younger standing by a truck outside his repair shop. In the background, barely visible, was a man loading a crate. His face was blurry, but the jacket he wore had a patch Rachel recognized. A logo tied to the smuggling ring from the Lincoln County bust. She snapped a photo of the article and texted it to Deputy Alvarez. "Know this guy with Victor?" "98, his shop," Alvarez replied minutes later. "Can't ID him, but that logo's bad news. Be careful, Rach." As midnight approached, Tom and Rachel met Carver at his cabin. He was waiting on the porch, a rifle slung over his shoulder, a lantern in hand. "No turning back once we start," he warned. "Fogwood don't forgive mistakes." They followed him into the forest, the trail barely visible in the moonlight. Carver moved like a ghost, silent and sure, leading them past brambles and over streams. The fog thickened, muffling their footsteps, making every shadow look like a threat. Tom kept one hand on the map, the other on his flashlight, his heart pounding with every step. After an hour, Carver stopped, pointing to a rocky outcrop ahead. "Cave's under there. Deputies patrol every few hours, but they're lazy. We've got a window if we move fast." Rachel scanned the area, her flashlight beam cutting through the mist. "Any sign of that box being tampered with?" Carver shook his head. "College kids found it by dumb luck. Rockslide hid the entrance for years. Whoever left it didn't expect it to be found." They reached the outcrop and Carver knelt, brushing dirt from a narrow opening. "This is it. Tight. Squeeze, but it opens up inside. Watch your step." Tom went first, sliding through the gap, his flashlight bouncing off damp stone walls. Rachel followed, then Carver, who pulled a tarp over the entrance to hide their tracks. The cave was cold, the air heavy with the smell of earth and decay. Stalactites dripped overhead, and the floor was uneven, littered with rocks. "There," Rachel whispered, pointing her light at a corner. A metal box, rusted but intact, sat on a ledge exactly where the college kids had left it. Tom's breath caught. Ethan's watch was in there, maybe more. He stepped forward, but Carver grabbed his arm. "Wait, look at the ground." Tom froze. The dirt near the box was disturbed, fresh footprints crisscrossing the cave floor. Someone had been here recently. Rachel crouched, examining the prints. "These aren't from the deputies, too small, like sneakers. Someone's watching this place." Before Tom could respond, a noise echoed from the cave entrance, a low, deliberate scrape, like boots on stone. Carver doused his lantern, plunging them into darkness. "Quiet," he hissed. "We ain't alone?" Tom's heart hammered as he gripped his flashlight, the beam trembling. The scrape grew louder, closer, until a shadow loomed at the cave's mouth. Whoever was out there knew they were inside, and they were coming for them. The cave was pitch black, the air thick with damp and fear. Tom's flashlight trembled in his hand, its beam locked on the shadow at the entrance. The scraping sound stopped. replaced by a low, uneven breath that echoed off the stone walls. Rachel pressed herself against the cave wall, her hand clutching a rock she'd grabbed from the floor. Carver, rifle in hand, crouched low, his eyes glinting like a predator's in the dark. "Who's there?" Tom called, his voice steady, despite the panic clawing at his chest. "Show yourself!" A figure stepped into the cave, hands raised. The flashlight caught a young man, maybe mid-20s, with messy brown hair and a nervous expression. His sneakers, matching the footprints Rachel had spotted, were caked in mud. "Don't shoot," he stammered, eyes darting to Carver's rifle. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." "Then why you sneaking around?" Carver growled, not lowering his weapon. "Start talking, kid." The young man swallowed hard. "My name's Lucas Reed. I'm one of the college students who found the box. I came back to check on it. I didn't know anyone else would be here." Rachel stepped forward, still gripping the rock. "Check on it? Why? You already turned it over to the sheriff?" Lucas's eyes flickered with guilt. "Not all of it. There was another letter, one we didn't give them. I kept it. I thought it might be worth something." Tom's blood boiled. He grabbed Lucas by the collar, shoving him against the cave wall. "You kept evidence about my son? What's in that letter?" "Easy, Tom." Rachel pulled him back, her voice sharp but calm. "Let him talk. Lucas, what did the letter say?" Lucas rubbed his neck, his face pale. "It was like the others, signed The Penitent. Said the kid, you're a kid, I guess, saw a deal go down in Fogwood. Drugs, big money. The Penitent felt bad, said they tried to help the kid get away, but it didn't work. They mentioned a name, Victor Malone. Said he gave the orders." Tom's heart sank, the name hitting like a punch. Victor Malone, the man Rachel had interviewed, the one Gus saw driving a truck in Fogwood the night Ethan vanished. "Where's the letter now?" Tom demanded. "In my dorm," Lucas said, his voice shaking. "I swear, I didn't know it was this serious. I thought it was just some old story, maybe something I could sell to a true crime podcast." Carver snorted, lowering his rifle slightly. "Dumb kid. You're lucky we found you before Malone's people did." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "You said Malone's people. Who else is involved, Lucas? You've been poking around. Don't tell, eh?" "Me? You haven't heard something?" Lucas hesitated, then spilled. "There's a guy, hangs out at the bar near campus. Goes by Red. He's old, maybe 60, always talking about the good old days in Misty Hollow. I overheard him last week, saying Victor's been jumpy since the box was found." Red laughed. "Said some secrets should stay buried." Tom exchanged a look with Rachel. Red could be a lead or a threat. "We need that letter," he said, "and we need to see what's in this box." Carver kept watch at the entrance while Rachel and Tom approached the metal box on the ledge. It was heavy, rusted shut, but Tom pried it open with his pocket knife. Inside was Ethan's pocket watch, its silver face scratched but unmistakable. Tom's fingers trembled as he lifted it, the weight of 20 years in his hand. Underneath were 3 letters, yellowed and brittle, and a crumpled newspaper clipping from 1998 about a drug bust gone wrong. Rachel unfolded the first letter, her flashlight illuminating the shaky handwriting. "I'm sorry," she read. Aloud. "The boy saw us at the creek. I told Victor to let him go, but he wouldn't listen. The kid was brave, but bravery don't beat bullets. I hid his things here where no one looks. Forgive me." Signed, The Penitent. Tom's knees buckled. He leaned against the cave wall, the watch clutched to his chest. "Bullets," he whispered. "They shot him." "My boy," Rachel's voice softened. "Tom, we don't know that for sure. The letter doesn't say he's gone. Maybe he got away." But Tom saw the truth in her eyes. She didn't believe it any more than he did. He forced himself to focus, pointing to the other letters. "Read the rest." The second letter was shorter. "Victor's got blood on his hands. The kid wasn't the first, won't be the last. I'm too weak to stop him. If you find this, tell the world." The third was a single line. "The bunker's where it happened. Find it, and you'll find him." Rachel frowned. "Bunker? There's no bunker in Fogwood, not that I've ever heard of." Carver, still by the entrance, turned. There is. Old logging camp, abandoned in the 80s. Smugglers used it as a stash house. Deep in the forest, past the creek. Nobody goes there. Too hard to find. Tom's mind raced. The bunker. Ethan's map hadn't marked it, but it was close to the cave. Maybe that's where he'd been taken. "We need to find it," he said, his voice hoarse. "Tonight." Lucas shook his head, panicked. "You're crazy. If Victor's people are watching this cave, they'll be watching the bunker too. You'll get us all killed." "Then go home, kid," Carver snapped. "But you're giving us that letter first?" Lucas nodded, clearly regretting every choice that led him here. "Okay, but I'm coming with you. I don't trust you not to turn me in." Rachel rolled her eyes but didn't argue. "Fine, but you follow our lead. Got it?" They packed up the box's contents, watch, letters, clipping, and slipped out of the cave, Carver leading the way. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the moonlight, making every step feel like a gamble. Tom's heart pounded, the watch heavy in his pocket. Ethan had been in that bunker, he was sure of it. Alive or not, his son was waiting. The trek to the bunker took over an hour, Carver navigating trails only he could see. Lucas stumbled behind, muttering about how he should have stayed in bed. Rachel stayed close to Tom, her flashlight scanning the trees for any sign of trouble. The forest was eerily quiet, the fog muffling even the crunch of their boots. Finally, Carver stopped at a clearing overgrown with ferns. "Bunker's under there," he whispered, pointing to a mound of earth covered in vines. "Entrance is hidden, but it's there." They spread out, searching for the door. Tom's hands shook as he pulled back vines, his flashlight catching a glint of metal, a rusted hatch, barely visible. "Here!" he called, his voice low. Carver and Rachel helped him clear the debris, revealing a heavy steel door, padlocked but weathered. Carver pulled a crowbar from his pack and, with a grunt, snapped the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a dark staircase descending into the earth. Tom went first, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air was stale, thick with mold, and something sharper: fear. The bunker was a maze of concrete rooms, littered with old crates and rusted tools. Graffiti covered the walls, faded tags from kids who'd snuck in over the years, but one room stopped Tom cold. It was small, barely 10 feet across, with a single cot in the corner. On the floor, scratched into the concrete, were the initials: Dick Ossie, Ethan Caldwell. Tom fell to his knees, tracing the letters with his fingers. "He was here," he whispered. "My boy was here." Rachel knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "We're close, Tom. We'll find out what happened." Lucas, hovering by the door, suddenly froze. "You hear that?" Tom looked up, his pulse racing. A faint hum, like an engine growing louder. Headlights flashed through a crack in the bunker's ceiling, illuminating the room for a split second. Someone was outside. Carver doused his lantern, his voice urgent. "We've got company. Move, now!" They scrambled back toward the entrance, but the hum became a roar. A truck screeched to a stop above, doors slamming. Voices, low, angry, echoed through the trees. Tom gripped the watch in his pocket, his mind racing. Victor's people had found them, and there was no way out. The bunker's concrete walls seemed to close in as the voices outside grew louder, sharp, and urgent. Tom's heart pounded, Ethan's pocket watch heavy in his hand. The headlights from the truck above sliced through the cracks in the ceiling, casting jagged shadows across the room. Rachel crouched beside him, her eyes wide but focused. Carver gripped his rifle, his face set like stone, while Lucas huddled near the door, his breathing ragged. "Stay low," Carver whispered, motioning them toward the back of the room. "There's another way out, old vent shaft, leads to the creek, but we gotta move quiet." Tom nodded, slipping the watch into his pocket. Ethan's initials, scratched into the floor, burned in his mind. His boy had been here, scared, maybe, fighting for his life. He wasn't leaving until he knew the truth. The voices outside turned to shouts. "They're in there!" A man barked, his voice rough. "Find the hatch!" Carver led them through the bunker's maze, past crates and rusted pipes, to a narrow corridor. At the end, a metal grate covered a vent shaft, barely wide enough for a person. Rachel helped Carver pry it loose, the screech of metal making Tom wince. Footsteps thundered above. Victor's men had found the hatch. "Go!" Carver hissed, shoving Lucas toward the vent. The kid scrambled through, his sneakers scraping the walls. Rachel went next, then Tom, his shoulders scraping the tight space. Carver followed, pulling the grate back into place just as the bunker door slammed open behind them. The vent was cold and damp, the air stale. Tom crawled, his flashlight bouncing, every sound amplified in the confined space. Rachel's voice came in a whisper from ahead. "Keep moving, we're almost out." After what felt like forever, the vent opened to a muddy bank by Willow Creek. They tumbled out, the fog swallowing them as they crouched in the reeds. The truck's headlights swept the forest, and two men, big, dressed in dark jackets, stood near the bunker entrance, flashlights scanning the trees. "That's Red," Lucas whispered, pointing to the older man, his hair a faint reddish gray. Under the light. "The guy from the bar," Tom's jaw tightened. Red, who'd laughed about secrets staying buried. Beside him was a younger man, built like a linebacker, barking orders. "They can't have gone far. Check the creek." Carver motioned them deeper into the fog. "We head for my cabin. Truck's there. We'll lose 'em in the forest." They moved fast, sticking to the shadows, the creek's gurgle masking their steps. Tom's mind raced. Ethan's letters, the bunker, Victor's name. It all pointed to one truth. Victor Malone had killed his son, and Red was part of it. But the letters mentioned someone trying to help Ethan. Who was the penitent? They reached Carver's cabin just as dawn broke, the fog thinning to a gray haze. Inside, Carver bolted the door, his rifle still in hand. "We're safe for now, but those boys won't stop. Victor's got too much to lose." Rachel pulled out her phone, checking the photo of the 1998 article. "Red's our link. If we can get him to talk, we can tie Victor to the smuggling ring. And Ethan," Lucas, still shaken, spoke up. "I've got the letter I kept. It's in my dorm, like I said. I can grab it, but I'm not going back out there alone." Tom looked at him, his anger softening. The kid was scared, in over his head. "You're with us now, Lucas, but you're going to make this right." Rachel nodded. "We'll get the letter, then take everything to Alvarez. He's clean, and he'll, listen, but we need to move before Victor's men find us." Carver shook his head. "You're not thinking straight. Red and his buddy know you were in that bunker. They'll be watching the roads, the dorms, everywhere. You need a plan, not a suicide run." Tom paced, Ethan's watch burning a hole in his pocket. "Then we draw them out, set a trap, use the letter as bait." Rachel's eyes lit up. "Smart. We let Red think Lucas is selling the letter, lure him somewhere quiet. Carver, you know the old mill by the creek? Nobody goes there." "Perfect spot," Carver grunted. "Risky, but it could work. I'll back you up, but if it goes south, don't expect miracles." They spent the morning planning. Lucas called the bar where Red hung out, leaving a message through a bartender. "Got something you and Malone want. Meet me at the mill, noon. Bring cash." Rachel contacted Alvarez, filling him in and asking him to stay close to the mill, ready to move if things went bad. By noon, they were at the old mill, its rusted skeleton looming in the fog. Tom and Carver hid in the shadows of the upper floor, watching the clearing below. Rachel and Lucas waited by the entrance. The letter, retrieved from Lucas's dorm in a quick, nerve-wracking trip, in Rachel's bag as bait. Red arrived alone, his pickup kicking up dust. He stepped out, his face hard, a bulge under his jacket, suggesting a gun. "Where's the letter, kid?" he called, eyeing Lucas. Lucas stammered, playing his part. "Show me the money first." Red laughed, cold and mean. "You're dumber than you look. Hand it over, or you're done." Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady. "We know about Victor, Red. The smuggling, the bunker, Ethan Caldwell. The penitent's letters spell it all out. You're not walking away unless you talk." Red's eyes narrowed, his hand twitching toward his jacket. "You think you're smart, huh? Victor's untouchable. That kid saw too much, just like you. He paid for it, and so will you." Tom's blood ran cold. He gripped the railing, ready. to charge, but Carver held him back, whispering, "Wait for the signal." Before Red could draw, Alvarez's patrol car roared into the clearing, lights flashing. "Hands up, Red!" Alvarez shouted, his gun drawn. Red froze, caught off guard, and raised his hands. Alvarez cuffed him, reading his rights, as Rachel handed over the letters and the watch. Back at the sheriff's office, Red cracked under pressure. He admitted Victor ran the smuggling ring in '98, using Fogwood as a hideout. Ethan had stumbled onto a deal by the creek, sketching the trucks in his notebook. Victor's men grabbed him, locked him in the bunker, and when Ethan tried to escape, Victor shot him. Red claimed he wasn't there for the killing, but he helped hide the body in a shallow grave near the bunker, marked only by a pile of stones. The penitent, Red revealed, was a low-level smuggler named Jimmy Tate, who died years ago. Guilty over Ethan's death, Jimmy had hidden the letters and watch in the cave, hoping someone would find them. Victor never knew, but when the box surfaced, he panicked, sending Red to clean up. The sheriff's team searched the bunker area, finding Ethan's remains under the stones. Tom was there when they brought him out, a small bundle wrapped in a tarp. He didn't cry. He'd run out of tears years ago. But he held the watch, whispering, "I found you, kid." A week later, Tom stood by Willow Creek, the fog lifting for the first time in days. Rachel was with him, along with a few locals who'd come to pay respects. Tom opened the watch, its ticking long gone, and let it slip into the creek. "Rest now, Ethan," he said, his voice breaking. The water carried it away, glinting one last time, before it sank. Victor was arrested, his empire crumbling as the feds dug into his past. Rachel's article hit the front page, not just exposing Victor, but honoring Ethan's courage. Misty Hollow began to heal, its secrets dragged into the light. Tom visited Sarah's grave that evening, placing a stone from the creek beside it. "He's with you now," he said, a faint smile breaking through the pain. For the first time in 20 years, he felt like he could breathe. And that's the end of Secrets Beneath the Fog. Wow, what a journey. Heartbreaking, intense, and full of twists. What did you think of Tom and Rachel's fight for the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let me know if you want more stories like this. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. Share this with your friends if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious and stay safe out there.